Okay, so to start with, let's go back to our panels and let's go grab that image of the controller. So under images in my library, I'll just click the add button. And I do have it in this folder here. It's called Vita D-Pad. Open. And we'll just actually go back to our inspector and click on Scene. I actually want to put this on a different layer. So again, go up to Scene, choose Layers, and add a new layer. Sometimes it's tricky to rename this, double click it or triple click it. Finally, I'm going to call this controller. Hit my enter key. And I'll put this image of the controller on this layer. So make sure that it's currently highlighted. And then just drag it. I'm just going to put it in the lower left area. And leave that like that. Okay, let's just save that. Now, let me explain how this will work. I'm going to have 4 separate invisible buttons, one over each of these arrows, so that when I roll my mouse over it with it down, which is imitating a touch screen being pressed, let's say when the finger slides over any one of these buttons, it will trigger the animation to go in that same direction. The way we need to make this work is we need to have a module or an element that will remember or will know which button is currently being addressed. And then the animation will have to look at that information module and say, okay, if the finger is on the up button, move the animation in the up direction. So in order to do this, we need to create a new attribute. So we're going to go to Game. And over here, we're going to add 2 things. Right now, we're going to add another actor and also an attribute, which would be that variable, that container of information, if you will. Why don't we start with the new actor, and we'll just call it control button. It's going to be a generic button that I will drag out on the screen and then duplicate it 3 more times and resize it to cover each one of these little pads. But before I do that, let me create the attribute under the game. So Game Attributes, hit my plus sign, and I want it to be able to record numbers. So I'll choose integer, click choose, and I'll double click on it here and I'll rename it move. So this is a custom attribute that I've just created to be a container of information, if you will, to basically record which button pad is being pressed or being touched by the screen. Okay, so it'll either be 1, 2, 3, or 4. And whenever the mouse or finger touches the button, that corresponding number will be recorded inside of the move attribute. And that way, the animation can actually detect what number is inside of the move attribute and can move in the direction accordingly. If that's confusing, just watch me here and you'll see that it's sort of the link, the communicator in between the touchpad and the actor, which is the animation over here. Okay, so we've got this attribute called move. Let's go back to our actors. We've got the control button. Let's start by dragging this first one over top of the top pad, and it's too big, of course, so I can click on it, and you can see these resize handles. Just make it about the same size. But the idea is to not have any of these overlapping each other. So I'm just going to move it up a bit here. And I can double click on it and I'll start to attribute some behaviors to register which button is being touched. So I do need to unlock this because I'm putting the behaviors on the screen on the actor, which is an instance of that actor. So we'll start by creating a new rule right here. Now the condition will be actor receives event upon touch when it is inside the button. And the reason I'm using inside instead of pressed is that way the finger can actually just drag across the button. That will work. Where if I use pressed, it actually has to be clicked. So when the finger is inside of one of these buttons, we're going to put a specific number inside of our attribute called move. So let's go down here to change attribute. And again, we're going to change the attribute based on, under game, inside of the move attribute, we're going to put the number 1. So if the button or mouse, or rather if the mouse or finger goes over this button, the number 1 will be entered into the attribute called move. So that's sort of step 1 of 2. So let's try that. Let's just save this first. And we'll go back. And now we need to add a behavior onto the actor called walking man to recognize that mouse or finger button being clicked. So I'll open up here. Since it was the up button that we put the attribute on, let's go in here and add a new condition. So we'll add the condition. Actor receives event. We'll go to attribute rather. If this attribute under game called move equals 1, execute the following. Now right now it says when all conditions are valid. So I would actually have to hit the up arrow as well as move the finger over the pad. I want it to be and or, one or the other. So instead of all, I'm going to choose any. So if either one of these conditions exists, it should send the animation in an upwards motion. So let's test this now. I know the up arrow key works. Now I'll release, but now let me drag the mouse. I've clicked on it and I'm dragging over, and it also reacts. Now we lost our little man off the scene, which is very interesting. Let me just pause this. I can actually rewind it if I want to start over, but let's address the little man walking off the scene. We need to go back to scene 1. So I'll just click my back buttons here. And under attributes, under scene, attributes, we have what's called wrap X and wrap Y. What that basically means is if it walks off the screen, it will enter on the other side if wrap is turned on. So let's turn them both on by clicking the checkbox for wrap X and wrap Y under the scene tab. And this way, I'll show you again, when he walks off the top, he will reappear in the exact same position coming from the bottom. So now I'll just click and drag here. I'm holding my mouse down, representing a finger press. And as you can see, he continues. So we don't lose him, in other words. So let me just stop this and refresh. Now there's another issue. I can see that white box and I don't want to see it. I want it to be invisible. So again, let's go back and deal with that. I can highlight the box. I can double click on it. I can go up to the attributes. And under graphics, I can turn off visible. Now if we go to the stage, you can't see it. But if I click there, it can still be highlighted. And let's just test this out with the preview button. So I'll just click my mouse and drag it over the up button. And of course he does move upwards. And he does reappear because we have wrapped our scene. Now the only problem here is if I drag away or release the mouse, he continues to walk, and I actually want him to stop anytime I move off of that pad. So let's just stop this, and we need to modify one of our rules. Let me go back here, and we'll double click on the pad, the invisible actor, and we did say to change the attribute called move to 1 if the touch is inside, but if it's not inside, we do need to set it back to 0. So I can actually just drag with an option, click and drag this attribute to the otherwise, and just reset the attribute called move back to 0, because when the actor called walking man sees that it's set to 0, it will stop walking as part of the conditions as well. So let's just give this a try. I'll just click and drag again, And now when I move out, you can see here that he does stop and revert back to the default image. So now we just need to do that for the other 4 buttons. So let's just go back here and back to our scene basically. And now what I can do to be efficient, like I said, I used one common actor, and I'm going to use 4 instances of that actor by Option on the Mac, Alt on the PC, click and drag that actor on the stage, that instance, double click it. This one's going on the right button, so we'll just change, we attribute the number 2. It's like we're going around the clock. Going up is 1, going right is 2, going down is 3, going left is 4. So we'll change the right button to number 2. Let's go back now and change the conditions on the right button. So if we click on right, under conditions, we'll add a new condition. Attribute. Under game, if the move attribute is set to 2, hit my tab key, execute the following. Now again, we're going to change this from all to any. So either of these conditions will trigger the animation to the right. Let's give that a try. There we go. Let's go back and do the rest now. Just go back here and double click on this. Drag it over with my Option key. Double click it. Change the condition for the game if move changes to 3. Hit my tab key to enter that. Then go back over here, and 3 represents down. Let's go back over to this actor. We'll go to the down rule, and we will add the condition based on the attribute under the game called move. If it is set to 3, execute the following conditions. Once again, we need to change this from all to any. And I'm going to save this file, and then I'll test it, preview. So I should have up, right, and down moving. Up, right, and down. Now we try the touchpad, up, right, and down. Now we just have the left one remaining. We'll go back, we'll take that down button, Option, click and drag, duplicate it, double click it, change the dot move to a number 4, and then go back and update the conditions on the walking man. So for left, we'll add the condition based on the attribute under game called move. If it is set to 4, execute the following set of conditions. Again, we'll change this from all to any. Save and test. Here we go. I'm just going to click my mouse and hold it down. And we are working on all 4 directions. And again, I'll just try my arrow keys. They work equally well. Okay, so that's working well, but one thing we haven't tried yet was to actually preview this in a browser, checking out the HTML5 preview. So let me just click on that button there now. And with everything set, iPhone landscape, simulate in Firefox. You can choose any browser that's available on your computer. I click the Launch in Browser button. And it launches it in my Firefox here. And I'll just try it out. I'll just click my mouse down and hold it down. And it seems to be working. I'll try my arrow keys. And they seem to be working as well. And I'll just try the wrap. I'll just run him off the screen. And he comes back in on the other side. So everything's good to go here. And this would work fine on an iPhone running as HTML5. Let's just go back. The only thing I want to change here is I don't want to default back to this front view image. I want it to stay facing the direction of the last movement. So if he's going up, I want to see him facing upwards and so on. So let's just go back and finesse this a little bit in GameSalad. We'll just go back to our scene here. And I'll go to each direction. So I'll start with the up. And it'll go in the otherwise, and I'll just add a change image attribute. And I'll go to my images and I'll find the last image in the up sequence right here. And I'll do that for each one of these. Now it's within the rule of going up, so that should be the last thing executed. And let's just test this one before we commit to all four. So when I go up and I let go, he stays in that position. Now, until I do the others, he's going to actually default to that. So let me go and do the others. So down. Again, in the otherwise section, we'll add the behavior called change image. And then under images, I will look for the last image in the walking down sequence here. Looks like it right there. Let me just scroll up a bit here. Drag this guy over here. And I'm confident that it works, so I will do all four at once while I'm in here. So then we'll find the right image. We'll go to behaviors, change image. I'll just scroll up a bit here. Under my otherwise section, change image under the right. I'll go to my images and see the right facing image, the last one in the sequence. Drag that to that little well. Close this one up and open up the left side. Add the behavior called change image to the otherwise section. And then just add the image that should go in there. And this is going to the left. And here we are. Here's the last image facing left. And I'll just collapse all of these. Save my file and give it another test under preview. So I'll just use my arrow keys. Now when I let go, he remains facing in the direction he was going. It's just a little detail, but it adds to the sophistication of the piece. Detail generally makes it a lot better. So there you have it. How to create a walking animated figure in 4 directions on the screen using 2 different interfaces, one using the keyboard on the computer and one using the touchscreen on the iPhone. And that is your exercise for today.